Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of B2B with Ross and Bella. I'm Ross.
I'm Bella.
And today we're going back to back with the co-founders of We Belong Here Music Festival, Justin Dauman and Charles Hochfelder. These two entrepreneurs founded We Belong Here 4 years ago, and 2025 marks their 4th year of them bringing this wonderful music festival to life here at the beautiful and historic Virginia Key Beach. We are so excited because Bella and I are stepping outside of our normal podcast studio for the first time, and the team invited us here on site. So today's episode is coming to you live from the We Belong Here Command Center. We're just outside. They're starting to build out the venue stage by stage. We are just so excited to learn more about their entrepreneurial journey and what has gotten them to this point and what goes into throwing a music festival from A to Z. So Justin, Charles, thank you so much for having us here, guys.
Let's go.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely pumped to have you in our. We're absolutely pumped to have you in our command center. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to show you a little behind the scenes, catch up with you guys, and just share a little bit of our story.
I'm excited. Let's get to yapping. What do you say?
Yeah, it's a nice little break from the craziness of this week.
I'm sure it's been nonstop.
Yeah, we're super excited. So obviously, first things first, we got to take it all the way back to the start of We Belong Here. You two are only, 27, 28, 29, and you're starting a music festival, or you've started a music festival. What was the first time that thought crossed your mind that you could actually do this?
I think the first time I thought about throwing a music festival was probably shortly after the first time I ever threw like a legit party. So that would be in college. And, when you have a crazy dream like that, it's kind of something that you never really let go of. It always, lives somewhere in your mind. And I think Charles is kind of the same way. And that's something that really brought us together. But when we started We Belong Here, it wasn't just about throwing a music festival. Really, it was about kind of a set of principles that we wanted to come into the industry when things opened back up, because we conceptualized it during COVID when we were living in Miami. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to change a lot of things about the way that nightlife and partying and going to raves and concerts were. And we felt like the perfect time to try and make that change was right when everything opened up again legitimately, when, we put the pandemic behind us and people were going to be looking for something different. And that's really where We Belong Here came from. It was doing events, bringing great music into unique locations. Yeah. And that's really kind of the principle that we aligned on more than anything else. Yeah. And a whole bunch of things followed that. And that's really just been kind of what We Belong Here has always been about, whether it's a festival or a smaller event.
Yeah. I mean, and vividly, I remember, the night that it kind of started forming. I know you had the idea and the concept for a brand called We Belong Here even before this night, but I had moved down to Miami right after I graduated college. You had moved there you got a 6-month rental.
Yep.
And you came over to my apartment for dinner just to catch up and whatnot, because we had known each other for a few years through you booking me as a DJ and whatnot. And I just vividly remember sitting in my kitchen having dinner, us talking about these pain points, us talking about, the vision that we had for post-COVID, post-pandemic, nightlife, the impact we could have on the scene. And it really did kind of start that night in my apartment over dinner.
So you started it with the idea of we want to sort of make waves. We want to change almost the way that festivals are being orchestrated, not necessarily we want to throw a festival, let's get the biggest names we can, more this is sort of the mission and vision of what we want. And then everything came after that.
So it didn't even start with we want to change it. It started with this is what we're frustrated about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It actually started with not really wanting to do it.
It really started with let's create a festival brand that's anti-festival.
This is why I don't want to throw events anymore. This is why I don't want to, be a part of this industry. These are the things I don't want to do, what I don't like.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, everything that was this is what I want to leave behind, that kind of turns into, wait, this is something that we can actually do. And seeing just how much Charles aligned with some of the things that I was talking about and how the ideas were flowing back and forth. It wasn't in that very moment that we were okay, we're starting We Belong Here. But I think that was kind of the foundation for maybe we can do something that's different. And over time, that led to the formation of
Well,
We Belong
actually,
Here.
like, remind me, was it that dinner that then sparked the Booby Trap series while we were
Yeah,
developing?
yeah,
We
that's
Belong Here a little more?
that's a funny one. So yeah, that was when we were like, you know what, maybe we can try and like organize some events together and try and do things that are different. But granted, it's still, you know, the middle of the pandemic. Miami's the only place that you can do events, and we we definitely tested out a couple of different smaller ideas of how to try and make a difference.
Well, low key though, shout out Booby Trap on the River, because like that. So that place is like a very cool but very like almost like underground strip club in the hip hop scene. It's like almost like
yeah,
you know,
it's very famous. It's very well regarded.
We've
like
had some booby nights.
We've
for
had some booby
sure.
nights.
No
Fun,
way.
fun side story. Bella one time did invite a worker from Booby Trap to actually come live with us.
no
It is
Yes.
not
performer.
a performer.
Yes.
It wasn't an offer that
Yes,
lived
a dancer.
through the morning, but we did wake up with some anxiety. Like,
I go,
What-
did I
what-
invite a stripper to come live with us?
We're not gonna get into full details, but I need to hear that story of how that came to be.
it was a good night. You could say that.
But like, I guess just to tie it all back, right? Like Booby Trap on the River, it's on the river, and it has this outdoor area with like all these cabanas and whatnot that we saw, and it was like, you know, let's try to program some electronic music in here and make like a little day club in Miami where people can pull up on their boats.
Yeah.
And how did
Yeah.
that pan out for you guys?
You know, actually, a funny thing that I'm just remembering now, the first one actually, you pitched me on the idea. You showed me the space, and I was like, fuck this, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
You did it anyway,
Yeah.
and you sold it out, and it was a
Yeah.
big success.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, all right, like,
I could get down with Booby Trap. Come
Yeah.
on.
And we did probably 4 or 5 events there with like some great, you know, I wouldn't say emerging local talent, like some kind of like
pretty big names. I mean, we had Morton perform there.
Wow.
Like that was, I feel like, his music was starting to blow
Yeah,
up, but
yeah.
like everything was closed, so he didn't get, you know, to do the massive venues that he's playing right now. So
Yeah.
that was really cool.
Morden, Robbie Rivera, Party Pupils. I think that might have been it, but it was a good little run, you know.
100%. Look where it led you.
Yeah.
So you have the idea, right? You have the sort of conception of the brand and your vision, and you start throwing events. Where does it pivot? When does it pivot into let's scale, let's get bigger, let's maybe one day have a music festival? Was it that year? Was it during that party series?
So we knew we wanted to do something on Virginia Key, and we never thought of it as a music festival.
Mhm.
We thought there's this amazing beach location and we can do an awesome event here. And that was kind of like our number one choice for a venue in Miami. And then we also had a number one choice for a venue in New York, which was Cipriani Wall Street,
Okay.
the former original New York Stock Exchange.
Sick.
So
So
cool.
sick.
It was
He's like,
unreal.
pat myself on the back.
I mean, Justin was hounding them for years, even before we really started talking about potentially doing an event like under a different brand, and they were always like, no, because they really only rented out to, you know, charities or people to do private events, weddings and whatnot.
Virginia Key, that is, or
No,
the
Cipriani.
former
Cipriani, yeah.
Okay, the former New York Stock Exchange. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that one was like crazy. It didn't, the way the economics of doing that venue work, it didn't seem like something that would be feasible. But when I, you know, broke it all down to Charles and basically was like, this is why this isn't possible and we shouldn't do it, he took a look at it and was like, well, actually, I'm pretty damn sure that like we could get 1,000 people to pay the price that's needed to
Yeah.
make this event work.
I mean, like, yeah, like we got the right artist, and you know, we have the right marketing tools that really convey the type of experience we're trying to put on.
Yeah.
I think that there are thousands of people that would pay the price point needed for this to, you know, break even at the very least. And
Yeah. I feel like I'm starting to see the dynamic in this partnership, and what makes you guys so successful is like maybe the voice of reason, or maybe more on the cautious side, and then we got the demon over here who's just ready to take on the world by its balls and just do it.
There's definitely a bit of yin and yang
Yeah.
going on for sure. We
I love
realized
it,
that at the
clearly.
beginning.
Yeah.
But it's also funny too, because there will be times where it's like totally flipped and I'll be like super aggressive about something that I'm like so adamant about, and Charles will be the one that's like,
Yeah.
no. So
It's
Yeah,
good to have that balance. You need to keep the checks and balances in the relationship.
100%.
So one of the things that you said was that this kind of actually stemmed out of frustration with the scene. What were some of the things that you guys were so frustrated with?
definitely overcrowding of venues. And that's like, it's just so noticeable that that can ruin an experience for really anyone, but especially too, it's like, I think the age that we were kind of at while the pandemic was happening, it was really pivotal because it's like when you graduate college and when you're in college, I think most people are just excited to be going out and just partying. And, you know, now you're 21, it's legal to do this stuff. And that's an excitement in and of itself. But eventually you get to an age where it's like, all right, the thrill of that has worn off. What's even the reason that we are going out anymore? And for me, at least, it's music. And I fell in love with dance music. I fell in love with EDM when it was called EDM. I fell in love with house and techno now that that's what we call it. And, you know, so many artists across that whole spectrum of music. And
I think Room to Dance was like the first pain point that we really were passionate about together. Like we were like so sick of it, you know, not naming any names or venues or events, but that's definitely the biggest pain point for us. And then obviously like locations, I think we're number two. It's, you know, we saw so many events that were happening in warehouses and parking lots, and just like, you know, it's cool, the production and the artists that are playing, but it's just not a vibe.
It has a different feel completely. The warehouses were a big thing during COVID. Here.
And like, I think both of us obviously still have respect for, you know, the promoters and the venues that are doing it.
Especially warehouse parties, to be honest. Like, I think that like a good warehouse party versus like the typical club night, I think it takes so much to put on, and it's such, you know, an awesome experience for what it is, but it's very niche. And there's a lot of like my friends that I would never be able to convince to go to a warehouse party. So that's part of it too. Like for someone who really loves house and techno, a warehouse party is like great, but we wanted to be more than just that person to be able to enjoy this music. We wanted to create something that someone who loves dance music can bring their friends that are on the fence about it, and they can enjoy it with them. And that exactly, and that's kind of how I think this community has been built around the We Belong Here brand, because there's people who come to our events that don't go to other events. This is maybe the one event of the year that people who go to events every weekend can get some of their friends that don't really go out with them to actually come to. So that's something that's so exciting and awesome.
I love it.
That
and
is
that
awesome.
energy obviously starts from the top and works its way down through your whole team, through all of your attendees, through I'm sure even your artists pick up on that energy and are like, damn, this feels different, this feels fun, inclusive. People want to be here not to just rage and get fucked up and drink, but to enjoy their scene, the scenery, enjoy the venue, enjoy the artists. So you guys are crushing it.
No,
it's amazing to see.
Like, you know, what you just said is so true, because like people might not even know a single song from a single DJ that come here, but they come and the vibe is so good. The sunset's amazing. The breeze feels great. The palm trees, just everything about it, like is a vibe. And, you know, I would say probably a lot more than other promoters, organizers, events, we have like a larger percentage of people that don't even know the acts that are coming to just have fun and vibe.
It's really cool to be able to capture them and bring them here. Why did you choose Miami? I know you said you wanted to have it here at Virginia Key, and that was sort of a goal from the start, but why Miami? Do you have ties here, family here, or just, you know, that the music scene is amazing and that you can pull out heads and attendees?
So we were both living here at the time, so I think it made it kind of the obvious choice. And then we're both from New York, which creates this funny dynamic, because We Belong Here was founded in Miami. We're like a Miami-based brand and company, but when we're here, we're kind of the outsiders, and we're the New Yorkers that are doing stuff. And then when we go back to New York, people look at We Belong Here and they're like, that's the Miami brand. So it's like a funny thing where it's like we're kind of outsiders everywhere we go, but at the same time, it also feels like home everywhere we go. So it's like perception
we
versus
belong
reality.
here, wherever that is.
It doesn't matter where we are or what's going on. Like we belong wherever
here.
we are. And also, you know, I would say like we did kind of like conceptualize this as doing it in New York first, but New York was so strict and crazy with the politics and the lockdowns and whatnot, and Miami was like its own country, so there was a lot more flexibility.
No, that makes complete sense.
Sounds like a great place to launch.
Yeah.
Well, what was so cool too, I definitely need to talk about how like Miami as a city, even though the city wasn't allowing events to happen on like Virginia Key and on parks, they didn't like let go or stop or freeze any of their staff. They were still letting them actively work and plan events for a point that felt like it was reasonable. Even if there was a chance it wasn't going to be able to happen, they were giving them that freedom to book out ahead. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons we were able to do something big in Miami so quickly, is because there was such an awesome staff here at Virginia Key that was actively working during the pandemic to plan ahead for events, hoping that there would be a near future where they would be able to happen. Whereas a lot of other cities were just not willing to have conversations until they knew for sure that it was going to be able to happen.
Definitely. Also, shout out Michelle from Virginia Key, the OG who believed in us when we had never thrown a festival. She was just the OG legend.
Yeah, takes one person Michelle, to give you a shot, right?
Yeah, seriously.
So year after year, it keeps getting better, in my opinion. We, I think, went to the very first one.
The first
was
year?
that the Purple Disco Machine one?
That's very cool.
We were here. I think we've been 3 out of 4 years.
I'm
we've
pretty
been all 3
sure
years.
I think we've probably been every single year.
I think we have been.
Which is really cool. Now it's kind of full circle that we're able to get to know the story behind everything.
Yeah.
That's really awesome, actually.
I am curious, like, what are the biggest challenges you guys have ran into along the way, or mistakes you've made that you kind of look back and you're like, what was going on?
I mean, I'd say like off the bat is just like budgets and like learning how to dial in and make, every single line item as tight as possible without sacrificing quality. I think like, the first couple of years we were very, it doesn't really matter what it costs. Like, we have this vision and we need to do it. And I think it's just learning how to like, find the fine line of balance. Like, it's not black and white, but just dialing it in where you aren't sacrificing any of the quality and things that we feel are the most important things, value adds for attendees, but also just not being like unrealistic and having your head in the clouds.
Right.
Yeah.
We were able to pick over time principles that we would make non-negotiable.
Okay.
But we were able to find principles that were not super expensive to have be non-negotiable. And that took time and learning to understand, like, what are the things that people love the most about this festival that aren't at the top of the budget, that aren't the most expensive things that we're doing. Because to do a festival this size and this level of intimacy, we're never going to have the same production as Ultra.
Right.
That's, not what we're going for.
This year is better than Ultras.
You heard it here first.
But there needs to be something different about it, and that's figuring out what makes We Belong Here different. And it's one thing to have the concepts, but then to actually understand, like, what does it take to build this and turn it into a product that people can understand? That's really, like, it takes trial and error. And if you're launching a product, right, usually you can, like, create that product and you try it out and you give out samples and you go
user acceptance testing and all that good stuff.
Yeah. But our product is the events that we throw. So our trial, our beta test, or whatever you would call it, of the festival was the first festival that we actually threw. And
so
that's
wild.
Crazy and terrifying, and everything about it is just nuts. And it kind of makes no sense to try and break into this industry. But luckily, we were stupid and confident enough to think that we could, and we just learned from our mistakes and have continued to try and always learn from our mistakes.
It really is inspiring, though, because, like, starting your own music festival seems kind of like an impossible feat. Like, we're the same age, and I'm like, how the hell do you make that actually happen? You turn that from a thought into a reality. So it's just really cool that at the end of it all, you just were, like, believing that you could do it.
Yeah, sitting here at year 4, like, do you feel like almost veterans of the game, or do you feel like each year you're going to take lessons and learn from maybe mistakes that were made, whether it was production, the way the stages were set up? Like, are you feeling like you're continually learning, or like, is it a smooth operation at this point?
Like, you actually said it best to me, like, yesterday or the day before when we were talking with our festival director and some of our partners and whatnot. Like, we still feel the same amount of pressure that we do today that we did, year one. But it's a different pressure. It's pressure to be the best. It's the pressure to, make the experience incredible and out of this world for the attendees. Whereas the second year, is the pressure to, like, can we make sure stages don't fall? Can we make sure nobody dies? Can we make sure the event runs smoothly? Like, and just like making the event happen. So it's like a different pressure in year 4.
I wanted to ask you about the 360 stage. Are you having a 360 stage this year?
We are.
Will it be rotating?
No. That has been a dream of ours. I'm not going to say it's never going to happen, but...
Didn't it happen year 1?
No.
So
it sort of
I
turned, right?
swear that stage was moving.
That was just you. Don't worry.
that's cool to hear.
Yeah.
He's like, it was.
At least someone got to experience
Yeah,
the
so
stage the way that we envisioned.
Meanwhile, she's in the crowd, literally doing circles.
It was definitely supposed to.
We
year
just
one.
had the DJ flip sides.
Oh, you
and
fooled me.
they were playing one way, and then they went and played the other way. And the idea was that, you know, everyone would be surrounding them and it would be natural. And I just remember the first DJ that did the side flip, I think it was Lost Frequencies, who played
Yeah.
one of the best sets
Yep.
that I've ever heard.
Yep.
But at the start of his set, he got on the microphone and he asked everyone so nicely if they could please come to the other side. And it just absolutely crushed my soul.
Oh, no.
You know what? It's funny you say that because I think we had a table that first year, and so the stage started and it was facing us. The artist was facing us, and then at some point in the night they did flip, and I was like, I thought we had the best spot in the house, and like now we're facing the wrong way. Like, come on, what's going on? But it's just funny. It goes back to like learning from whatever, not mistake that you made, but experiences that you went through and being able to apply them the next year.
100%. I mean, like that's an example. Like one of the first walls that I think we hit. Like we were very much planning for it to rotate ever so slowly, like maybe a full rotation every 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So it's like barely noticeable, but like over 5 minutes, you know, he moves 30 degrees or 40 degrees.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where like 2 months, 3 months out, they're like, this is going to cost like $200,000 just to make the stage rotate,
And
like
then-
just the booth.
I think even looking into it more in the future, not only is it insanely expensive, but no one who has that technology wants to rent it out for an outdoor event. Like
Right.
if we were going into a arena, it would probably be something that would be pretty feasible. But to
Yes.
do that outside,
Yeah, on the sand.
Yes.
Literally, we're on a beach. We're not on concrete.
probably the only way to do it would be to buy the equipment that you need to, because I
Right.
don't think any company is going to rent it out.
Right.
And this isn't even a grass field. This is literally a beach. Like,
Sand.
You just start
When we
sinking
just
for-
pulled up, I like for some reason blanked that it was a beach. I don't know why. We were headed to Virginia Key Beach, and I like stepped foot outside the car, and I was in sand. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. We're on a fucking beach.
Yeah, it's pretty
Sand,
sick.
grass, little
It's a
dirt,
mixture.
but mostly sand.
It's a
and
mixture.
sand and
it's
grass.
kind of a mixture of everything,
Yeah.
which is nice. It gives it some character.
All the elements.
All the
100%.
elements belong here, not just the pretty ones.
Yes, and you've experienced those elements throughout the years, right? I think last year got a little chilly at night. Have you experienced like rain or anything?
Yeah, the first one there was definitely some drizzles throughout the day, and
couple hours.
I think was it the day before or 2 days? I think it was the day before it just downpoured
Wow.
for like an hour, and then it was gone.
it downpoured, and on the first year, the day before, one of our generators caught on fire as
Wow.
well. Which
Oh
like,
no.
And then what? Last minute, you have to get a new one.
yeah,
and-
like the like Herc or Sunbelt or United Rentals or one of those companies had to send like an emergency shipment
Wow.
or something, but
Wow.
worked
So
out.
Virginia Key has like notoriously had some logistical issues. Remember when like Ultra was here that one year and the traffic in and out? How have you guys avoided some of that stuff? Just like the one way in, one way out type thing with the fire marshal, the sound, all that stuff. Have you ran into issues with that or?
I mean, I think like regardless of what size event it is, you know, 1,000 and up, I'd say, like you're always gonna have a little bit of congestion and whatnot, like at the end of the event and whatnot, and
Yeah.
coming in. But obviously, we're working super close with like the Miami Fire Department and the police departments and whatnot, and a really good plan for the causeway, good signage and BMS boards and all that. But you know, Ultra obviously took over like not just the space we're taking over; they took over Marine Stadium. Like they took over
Oh.
several parts of it and like fenced, you know, so much of this
Yeah.
island.
And brought so many more people than we
What?
50,000
50,000? How many do you
a day.
expect over
Crazy
your
that
2
that
days?
even was able to happen.
What's that?
How many people do you expect over the 2 days this year?
15,000.
15,000.
That's
Holy
exciting.
shit! And that's the most ever, I assume, that you've had.
Yes.
That would be the most ever. Yeah.
That's a lot of fucking
Pretty
people,
sick.
guys.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of tickets to sell, but
You
know,
heard it. Let's get those tickets rolling and flowing and
people
going.
in Miami love to wait to the last minute.
Yep.
Yep.
But we've definitely seen kind of for the first time ever like a much earlier buying trend
hmm
from, you know, the start of the announcement all the way through. It's been really cool to see
Well,
that people
yeah.
have been kind of like jumping at this. Maybe it's because they've been to the festival before and it's
Right.
a no-brainer, or maybe they just love the lineup. Whatever it is, it's been cool to see that being different.
Yeah.
But Miami always, it's a very last minute thing, which is also one of the most
It's just-
terrifying things, because there's been festivals where we've sold half of the tickets in the final week.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
So
And that's just sitting on your shoulders
It's-
leading up to the festival.
I mean, it's typical also in New York. It's typical, like Miami, I think, is a little more last minute.
Yeah.
But it's kind of always like that. Like, unless you sell out well in advance, it's just the rush.
Yeah. So, Charles, you're more operationally focused, right? And then Justin, you're more on the marketing side, would you say?
yeah.
So I feel like I just want to commend you guys because your marketing strategy for We Belong Here is
Insane.
impeccable. It's fire. It feels like clockwork every year when it starts leading up to We Belong Here season. We start getting the targeted ads. We start seeing the planes flying overhead.
Yep.
What else? We see
The
the
posters
flyers
all
in
over
Wynwood and stuff. So
Shout out David, our CMO.
Thank you, David.
In the kitchen, cooking
cooking the
all
posters.
day, every day, 365. He's a beast. Him and Justin have literally made our brand like look like the sickest and most beautiful thing ever, and it is. Like, it's not misleading. I feel like everything we're conveying is really genuine and true, and they just do an epic job of capturing it.
Yeah. Okay. And I was just going to ask like,
Crushing
what
it.
your approach is there, but it sounds like you have a whole marketing team.
Yeah,
that's
we
in
have
cooking.
we have a full team now on the marketing side, which is really awesome because it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
And now having so many people who are so talented at what they do, and also having so much of it be in-house. But like, we don't have many people that are working on We Belong Here full time,
Okay.
year round, which is such an interesting challenge. But what we do have is so many people who are very good at something specific,
Right.
and that has grown over time to now have a handful of people in various roles that aren't even necessarily like, you know, an agency or doing this as a contractor for a ton of different events. Just people who, you know, they might have a full-time job,
Right.
and then they're also doing this or something like that. So
I'd also add, like, in addition to being super talented, like, they're all very passionate and like believe in the brand and product, like in their core, which I think definitely has an impact and like translate into the work that's done.
It's easy, right? It not only is it a fun scene, and is it pretty much the things and the events that we love to do and love to go to. So I'm sure it's easy for your team to hop behind that, but also the brand is obviously very easily to sell itself and to get behind. So how big is your team? Like, how many full-time employees do you have versus maybe like more seasonal employees?
technically, we don't even have a full-time employee.
Okay. And so it just comes in with the flow of the season and stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
You know, there's basically, 3 people on the We Belong Here side that are working on this like year round as our only project, and Charles and myself are the two of them. So, but to make a festival come together, it takes hundreds of people. And that, like, to say that it's just a couple of people would be like the most untrue statement possible. There's so many people that like represent this brand, that like really carry it with them as like a core part of what they do. And when the festival comes together, it's funny because, a couple weeks like after this festival happens, the team will feel like pretty small, definitely bigger now that we've done it a few years, but in the past, like a few weeks after the festival, and the team feels really, really
Bare
small.
bones.
And it's like, but then when the festivals come together, it takes so many people doing so many different things.
Do you start planning next year, 2026, like Monday, like the day after the festival ends, or do you take a week, a month off? Like, when does that planning and organizational process ensue after this year's festival is done? Or are you already looking at it?
I'd say like the groundwork. If the groundwork's not like we're kind of grandfathered in here at Virginia Key, and we know we have a home next year. So like as long as the groundwork is laid and there's a foundation, it's like I'd say 6 to 8 months. We start really beginning the logistical and the production and all of that, and artists and whatnot. For new venues, it's kind of like right away.
And I would say too that, that's like kind of the more concrete answer of when like the work really goes into it. But the process really does start right after, because the first and most important thing we do is we ask everyone who attended the event what they think about the event. And getting that feedback and reading through literally every single answer, that's really the start of trying to make next year better. And we're not taking that right away and being like, okay, we can change this and that, but we take that information, we digest it, and we pick out the things that are like we don't really, a lot of people said this, but we don't really agree with it.
Okay.
There's always a couple of things like that, maybe some people were just upset about something that they didn't understand we were trying to do. But for the most part, the feedback is very accurate. It's very spot on. And it's something that really resonates as like, yeah, they're right. We could have done this better.
Okay.
Or, wow, that's a really great idea. And a lot of people are saying the same thing. So really just listening to everyone. And over time, We Belong Here, and especially the We Belong Here Miami Festival, it has evolved to be something that's so much more than just an idea that we had and then something that a bunch of people come together, because every iteration of it is built by the people who attend it, because that's who we listen to. The social media comments yelling at us for, water being distributed in a way that wasn't understandable, so people thought that we didn't have free water. If people don't know where the free water is, then it's basically the same thing as not having free water.
Yeah.
So then we're the organizers that didn't give people free water,
Right.
and we fucking suck for that.
Yeah.
And then we own that, and in the future, we're like, okay, we have to figure out how to make sure that getting attendees water is like
Bro,
one of the most
Justin
important
calls
things.
me like in his sleep, like 3 a.m. Like, are the free water stations like confirmed? Are they good? Is there any chance it breaks? If it breaks, what happens? What's our
Such a
backup?
focus of
So
festival
So what
goers,
is the
the
plan
water.
with the water this year, the free water? Just so all the attendees know.
We actually bought devices that will filter water, and now we own our own stations to be able to do filter
Okay.
water.
Where in the past
Nice,
we've rented
nice.
and
Right.
relied on a third-party company. No more relying on third-party companies.
Yeah.
We own free water. So
Hell
it'll
yeah.
always be there.
Free water at We Belong Here. We love it.
Oh my
You
God.
guys are doing some other cool things. You have smorgasbord. Am I saying that right?
Smorgasburg.
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 Yeah.
Smorgasburg.
Smorgasburg.
Smorgasburg. So you're partnering with them, right? And they're gonna bring in how many food vendors?
There's 15 this year.
This is the
15.
third year or
Yeah,
second year?
this is our third time partnering with Smorgasburg, and that was, I think, after the first festival, that was one of the first things that we did, was like, we wanted to step up the food game
Yeah.
so much. We felt, because the first party we did was at Cipriani, and there was literally Cipriani Italian
it's
food
hard to
Yeah,
beat.
at this
Yeah.
party. We were like,
Yeah,
food
yeah.
makes a great party,
Yes.
and we want our festival to have great food. We don't necessarily know how to curate amazing vendors and deal with all the logistics and find them. That sounds like a full-time job that we don't have time to do. But what we can do is reach out to some brands that we know and love. And Smorgasburg, for me, it's like, it's very personal, because my family, we go there and we celebrate Father's Day every
That's
year at the
amazing.
Smorgasburg in New York. So I think I even like wrote that in my pitch email to them. And Gaston from Smorgasburg Miami, he responded very quickly, and we were able to do this together, and now it's grown, and we are really excited to be partnering with them, not only in Miami for 3 years in a row, but for the upcoming year, with a lot of things that we have planned. They're going to be involved in pretty much all of our festivals this year. So
That's
That's really
amazing. We had a
exciting.
great time. It's in Wynwood usually,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, we had a great time when we went. Obviously,
I love a
ate
food
our
fest. I
asses
love
off.
festival food. I love absolutely anything
We're
where there's
trying to
multiple
combine-
options.
We're trying to combine, a food festival into music festival, and
Yeah.
also kind of like, beyond food and music, like art. It's always, I wouldn't say a challenge, but that's definitely something that like we hold very dear to our hearts, is trying to like give a spotlight not only to local emerging like talent musicians, but
Mhm.
also to artists.
So I think that was definitely some good background on just how you guys got started, where the brand was conceived from, and some of the lessons that you've learned over the past 4 years. But sort of pivoting into this year, into 2025, I think you guys probably have curated one of the best lineups that I've seen in a very long time. We're talking Cascade, Eric Prydz, Steve Angelo, Lane 8.
Some
I'm getting a very
serious
OG,
legends.
like nostalgic feeling. Was that like a strategic direction you wanted to go in, or?
I would actually say it's not about nostalgia to
Okay.
us at all,
Okay.
but I definitely understand and can see how it evokes that in a lot of people, and I think it's cool that it worked out that way. But all of the artists that we booked to be on this lineup are because we love the music that they're putting out now. We love the direction that they've taken their careers. This isn't like, I think there's a festival in Vegas that was like When We Were Young festival, and they
Oh,
book
really?
all these nostalgic rock acts, and it's a really cool concept. We're not there was no theme of this
Right.
being like we're gonna book all of these
Right.
legendary progressive house acts. There's definitely a vibe when it comes to We Belong Here, and it worked out this year where it was very melodic, very progressive house, and it just so happens that a lot of the artists that are putting out the best progressive house music right now are the artists that have been doing that for 10, 20 years. So
I'd say also like it does kind of it happened kind of naturally and not on purpose, but like these OGs and legends, it does kind of work very well with our crowd because really our core demographic, our core age attendee is like 25, 26, 27, and which is what we want. Like we,
that's as like the starting point of like the entry point. It really goes to like 25 to 45 really is like the whole range. We definitely find like people in the later half of their 20s is like a big segment. We have people in their 30s is a big segment. So where like a lot of festivals are very oriented towards 18 to 24 as their core demo. We're 21 plus as a starting point. And even, the 21, like we're trying to build with like college seniors. That's like a point of expansion for this year of like, how can we bring more people to the festival is by trying to get some of the people who have just graduated college and are in college, but really 25 to 45 is that core demo. And it definitely, when you have artists that have been doing their thing for a very long time, I think it definitely resonates really well. And it's like, it's funny how we have gotten such amazing feedback on the lineup, and I appreciate it coming from the both of you as well. And I think it comes from a place of like not trying to please everyone, but trying to like really double down on music that we believe in. So the voices can kind of be loud around this lineup is so good, this is so amazing, because not everyone's going to think this is a great lineup, but there is a percentage of people who like a certain type of music that this lineup was curated for. And it's also music that, like we were talking about before, how a lot of people come who don't know the artists. It's not just music for people who love progressive house, melodic house, but it's for people that just like to have a good time. And we think that the music is so positive, and it's so like not like just positive in a way that's just like euphoria all the time, but it's complex. It like the music takes you on different emotions and on a roller coaster and on a journey, and it leaves you with like a real experience. So really anyone can come and enjoy that.
Yeah, I think it also is a good like entry point maybe into house music. If for instance the people like your friends that you couldn't get to go to a warehouse party, they would probably love a Cascade set. And you know what I mean? It's like it is for everyone.
Sunset set on the fucking beach.
Yeah.
It's magical. And like I'd say that's definitely also just another focal point of the brand is like daylight, like into darkness.
We need more daylight parties.
It's the best. Like people love sunrise parties, like
it's
when at 6
too
a.m.
much effort though to make it to sunrise.
100%.
I'm fully getting on board sunset versus sunrise these days because the sunset's
and
a lot
especially
easier
with like
to do.
our average attendees being a little bit on the older side, a little bit more mature, they don't want to freaking stay out till 6 a.m.
I know.
Yeah.
It's hard. That's the Miami lifestyle. That's just sort of like become normal to us, but it's not normal.
And it's funny because with the Miami lifestyle, right? Like we end at 2 a.m. and in New York we end at 10 p.m. and in other cities that we're planning on expanding to, a lot of these festivals are going to end probably at 10,
Not
11,
necessarily
12.
by choice.
More because of the
ordinances
city, but
and stuff.
I feel like 2 a.m. in Miami is 10 p.m. in New York.
Yeah.
So it's like we're still ending, very early before, bedtime. It's just we're doing that under the frame of like what's actually real and what the culture is in Miami.
Right.
We have our own time zones.
I know. We literally do live in our own time zone and our own country, it feels like. So how does one go about booking an artist like a Cascade? Like, let's say we wanted to get Cascade to play our birthday party or something. Like, what goes in? And for, many of our listeners, they don't understand maybe some of the complexities and the back and forth and the
like,
negotiating and the economics.
I'll let
Give us the
Justin
steps.
handle most of it, but the first thing is a venue. Like, you need a venue before you reach out to artists.
Yeah.
That's like number one.
Yeah. And, I don't think myself or Charles would be the right person to tell you how to book Cascade at your birthday party because neither of us really deal with the artist bookings. We've always had amazing people that have been brought into our team to handle this component of the festival. And, I'm sure all of these artist agents are really nice wonderful people, but we would rather spend our time, instead of going back and forth with them, we'd rather spend our time focusing on the customers and, you know, really just like dialed into that side of the business and not about, you know, the politics and the details. And, you know, all these artists have their own strategy, and to get them to, at a specific moment in time, have it make sense with that strategy to be on a We Belong Here lineup is a very complex thing. That takes a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of stuff that we don't even want to have to understand what goes into it.
Time to do it.
So a lot more complex than we thought. And, you know, like we as a brand are really trying to, you know, book the acts that we love, but also like a really good blend of like different genres. Like we're not really booking dubstep and whatnot, but still we want to take, you know, the best artists that we love from different genres. And sometimes certain artists, you know, don't want to be on a lineup at a certain point in their career with other artists. So it's definitely, you know, something.
Yeah, you
we're
gotta
glad
work with
to be out of.
everyone and their egos and like their careers,
Right.
and being very strategic about what they're playing. So I imagine that it is like a very lengthy process.
And one more question on that topic, like, and this is just something I'm truly genuinely. It's been a long day.
Genuinely.
I've never heard that.
So wait, has the rest of the podcast not been genuine? Only this part is?
No.
No, it's been genuine.
I like actually, I was like, I'm interested and I want to ask.
You're genuous about it.
I'm super fucking genuous. That's funny. The economics behind booking a massive artist, right? These artists, I'm sure, are pulling a hefty fee. Like, is there a way for you beforehand to calculate like an ROI almost on an artist? Like, this artist is X amount of dollars, but we know that Y is going to come back in the door, or it'll sell this many tickets. Are you even worrying about that, or are you just going with your intuition of these are the artists that we want?
So on a festival, there's no true way to measure it. If we were doing, you know, hard ticket venues like an amphitheater and it was a headliner show with one artist, there's a lot of historic data that can like make that very calculated. But to book a festival lineup, I feel like part of it is kind of like doing like a crazy parlay where you have to just like have all of these artists and you have to say, okay, well, this artist can sell this many tickets. But when you book, you know, other artists, how many of those fans that would see this artist at a 10,000 person venue and that artist at a 5,000 person venue are the same fan? You have no real way of measuring all this stuff. So we try and, you know, do as much research about how artists perform both in the market as well as like across the country and internationally to gauge what makes sense. But, you know, ultimately, like, kind of just have to go with your gut a little bit.
It's cool that you guys can trust your intuition, and it's obviously led you in the right direction to date. So, I mean, it sounds like obviously a lot of research goes into it, but at the end of the day, you also just are feeling and trusting yourself.
It's also like just, it is unpredictable, as much data as you can like gather, and we do, of course, but like, you know, what date and what weekend are you choosing also plays into it. Like Sundays are typically a little harder than Saturdays because people have work. So it's, and like also the setting, right? Like what venue, like what is the venue's reputation? And obviously, like, as a brand, we're a traveling event company. You know, we are kind of the venue as well as Virginia Key, but it also does make it a little harder to tell about the date of specific artists because like we've built up our brand and we've done such a good job with the content and the marketing and whatnot in conveying our brand. So it also, as our brand grows and we continue to throw more successful events that fans love and the experience is amazing, it might even be harder to tell, like, okay, we sold this many tickets because we had this headliner. Like, no, the percentage of people that are just coming for the brand or just for the venue is going up. And
the lines are starting to blur a little bit. And I feel like that is you bringing this all to life, which is fucking awesome. You not only have these amazing huge name headliners, but you also have amazing local talent. What, 40, 50 local artists that are going to play? 48.
Is it 48?
It's definitely more than 40. I know that's been kind of the benchmark for all of the past few years, is to make sure that we book more than 40.
That's amazing.
With back-to-backs, it's probably closer to 60.
Yeah, I think so.
It's amazing for the community too. And you have the Artist Spotlight program, right? And so tell us a little bit about that.
So the Artist Connection program.
Artist Connection program.
And there
wait,
was like
can I go back and say that again?
yeah. No, it's funny though because there was a time where it was the artist
was the
spotlight
artist
program
spotlight.
for
Okay.
like it was the artist connection program. Then we rebranded it for like a couple months, and then we flipped it back to artist connection.
Okay,
It was
so-
genuinely the artist spotlight, and now it's the artist connection.
Oh man, now I'm not gonna
Okay,
live
so
that
you
one
have
down.
the artist connection program. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so the artist connection program, it's really a way to kind of open up the doors to We Belong Here and let anyone that knows remotely who we are have a chance to perform and play on the stages. And we're not the first festival to do something like this, but we just always thought that it was kind of cool how some people would get this like rare opportunity to play a festival, and we wanted to open that up to as many people as possible. And I think part of that too is because originally when we envisioned We Belong Here on Virginia Key, we thought of it as a one-stage festival. And we really thought of this idea of like everyone kind of just like having the same exact experience. But then we also come from a world of doing smaller events where we've seen clubs and parties sell out when you stack a handful of local artists together. And at first we thought of it kind of almost as like just a marketing strategy, a little bit of like we can get some local artists. But then when we saw really like the impact of like wow, this opportunity was so big, and people had so much fun, and just how much people loved the beach stage. Like we really thought the big thing was going to be the 360 main stage of the first year, and there were so many people that spent almost the whole festival at the beach stage. And there were some artists that like I had just found out who Erotis was because of him playing back to back with Francis on the beach stage. And now we've booked him a few times. I listen to his music all the time. He's blowing up, and maybe already has blown up, I guess, at this point when you think about like where he's at and everything he's doing. So I got put onto so much good music just from something that was almost like a little bit of a marketing decision to make. And it was like, wait, if this is having this impact, why don't we really double down on this and make giving these opportunities to local artists and to upcoming artists like a core part of what we do? So we added another stage the next year, the Lost Village stage. And we just booked as many local artists as we could find. And the Artist Connection program made it a lot easier to find those artists because we gave everyone that, had the initiative to reach out to us, they get as much of a chance to play as, DJs and artists that we know personally or know who they are. And we used to personally go through every single submission, and we still go through a lot of them ourselves now too. And now we have more people on the team, but that same, mentality of if you submit, like your music is going to get proper consideration and it's going to get listened to. That like absolutely is a part of the Artist Connection.
I think that's very, very cool that you're giving people that chance to kind of, have their moment. But a lot of our listeners are up and coming DJs, people that are kind of on that journey in music. What are some of the things that you are looking for when they submit? Like what do you recommend to get on that We Belong Here stage?
I think it's really two things simultaneously to be like a great local artist. And to be a great local artist it's kind of a moment in time thing. It doesn't mean that this person is the most likely to become the next big thing. But we want someone that has fostered a great community locally and, really is a part of the community, as well as really takes music like very seriously. And that's so important and has become more important over the years. We really have been trying to prioritize more and more people who produce original music. And that doesn't mean they have a Spotify full of songs. It could be a couple of unreleased remixes on like a private SoundCloud link, but we just want to see something that's like you take this seriously enough where you do have your own music, even if it's in its infancy.
Cool. Love it.
I do.
And so, one quick thing is the first year of the festival, we actually called it like the We Belong Here Beach Club experience. Like we really wanted to not promote it as a festival because we were trying to create like a beach club party vibe. And it's just, we kind of fell into like naturally,
Everyone else called it a festival.
everyone else called it a festival, and
So we were
Texas
like,
is
okay, I
why
guess it's a
shouldn't we?
festival.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually remember when
the
it was
city
called
labels,
the experience.
Do
right.
you?
Yeah.
Oh, the We Belong Here experience. That's
360 Beach Club
Yes,
experience.
I remember
Right,
that very
okay.
That's what
well.
it's called. But
Wow.
with regards to the stages too, one thing I wanted to say is like I don't think like another pain point I think that we kind of talked about is like these big festivals have multiple stages. The set times are 45 minutes or 55 minutes in an hour, and you have to pick and choose sometimes between your favorite artists and run back and forth. Like we wanted to create the beach stage in the Lost Village for the locals and create like a really different type of party. And like you were saying before, the one of the two main important things, like, do they have a community of people? And oftentimes like those are the best parties, like when a couple DJs and artists can bring a community of people that love their music and are passionate, it creates like a crazy energy and a really good party. Whereas obviously the big headliners have thousands and thousands of fans. It's like a little more intimate almost on our other stages.
And on those other stages, people are familiar with themselves. Like you said, it is that community of friends or people who go to events every, weekend together in Miami. And I feel that like that is so fun to just be around and be in.
And that's like kind of the scene that we came up from, like, and learned how to do events and got the ropes was these parties, these weekly parties and clubs and stuff like that. So we really wanted to like give back to that scene. And it feels like, every year there's different people who are doing really well in that scene. Some people build off of it and thrive, and we wanted to give a spotlight to those people because that's as much of the dance music community and the music scene and culture as the big artists. And I think what's cool about the way the festival is this year with 3 stages is that most of the artists on the main stage have 2-hour sets.
So unique.
So that means you're either at the main stage for, a headliner that you want to see, but instead of having to go around and it's like, well, I want to catch this artist that I love on this stage and whatnot, for someone who, maybe is visiting from out of town, it's like you either have your headliner or you have to go explore. And you're probably, if you're visiting from Chicago and you've never been to Miami, like maybe once in your life, but you're coming to this festival, you're going to have to listen to DJs unless you want to spend your whole time at the main stage, which I definitely don't recommend doing.
Right.
Go around and explore, and you're going to discover new artists that you've maybe never even heard of before.
That's the best thing
100%.
about music festivals is finding new artists that you didn't know about, and then they become your new favorite DJ.
Yeah, and that little serendipity that
it's a
happens
special
throughout
thing.
the night.
Yeah.
We've obviously been touching on the venue heavily, but like, can you just walk us through the setup this year? So I think there's 3 stages, and who's playing where? What's the vibe gonna be like? Can we just hear a little bit more about the venue itself? Because obviously it's beautiful, feet in the sand. You could dance in the water if you want. I just sort of want to hear it from you guys.
So when you first walk into the venue, the first stage and area you're gonna come across is our vendor village and merch booth and whatnot, and we have a really cool lounge and activation there for that. And then right off is the beach stage where, like you said, like that is the place where people are dancing with their feet in the sand. People are dancing with their feet in the water.
So
the
fun.
breeze is so great. The vibe is so cool. It's so pretty, like the skyline and the view and whatnot.
Good picture opportunities.
Oh yeah,
Great photos there.
I know.
My personal favorite.
it truly is, like Justin was saying before, it's one of the most special things that We Belong Here, has discovered and curated and whatnot, is the beach stage. So definitely check that out. And then if you keep walking, you'll pass Smorgasburg, food village, and whatnot, and then you'll pass our gold lounge with a bunch of comfortable seating and whatnot. You have a good view of the main stage. That'll take you right into the main stage, which is crazy this year, 360. It's the best production we've ever done. Like, we are so
significantly bigger.
Really, biggest and best yet.
Yeah, it's
the best team behind it.
Yeah.
Like,
Sick.
I'm so
it's
pumped
it's
for
going.
this weekend.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
it's
I mean,
gonna
it's
be
gonna
fun.
blow your mind away. It really is. And then if you go back to Smorgasburg, right through Smorgasburg, it's called the Lost Village. So it's not the
With
easiest.
the little huts, right?
Yes,
I
it's
love
not-
that area.
It's not the easiest thing to find. It is a little like the name. It is a little lost. It is a little hidden. But it's surrounded by these beautiful, colorful huts that have been at the park for, I think, over 100 years.
Wow.
And it's also right off the beach, so you can dance with your feet in the sand, but it's more like, grassy, like Lost Village, like
Right.
almost like a campsite.
Right. I finally clicked in my head why it's called the Lost Village, because I remember being there last year and looking around, and you see the cottages, you see the houses, you're like almost up on like the deck of one of them if you want to go.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a rocking chair on one deck.
Ross is like, I was rocking.
I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna let people in the huts.
I know I wasn't in the hut. I promise I didn't break
were,
in.
but there were people in the huts last year. I don't think the best things happen in those huts.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Bad
I'm
shit
sure.
goes down in the huts.
Yeah.
Well, we're just so incredibly excited and really happy to
For
be
the
here.
huts or for the festival?
I'm genuinely
Both.
excited
He's
for the huts.
genuinely excited about the huts.
So we like to wrap things up here at the B2B podcast with a little segment we call Explain This. And so, Justin, we're going to point this one towards you. I'm going to show you a picture, and you just have to tell us the context, what's going on, and maybe a little story about it. So here it is.
That is me rapping in the basement of my parents' house.
Well, funny story. I know you both actually were young, white, Jewish aspiring rappers. There's a third used to be young, white, aspiring Jewish rapper among us. It was me.
No way.
Yeah,
way.
it was me.
Saucy.
We
Was
could
it
do-
Saucy Boy or Saucy?
Saucy boy,
Do
I think.
features on
We
it.
could do
but
features.
he- I mean, he
I
has the
went by
greatest-
Big JD.
Yeah, the
Big
great-
JD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sir Chaz.
Yeah,
And
so that was
so-
actually another thing that we bonded over was the fact that we both had rap careers in the past. And
Well,
I think it's actually the mentality of believing that you have what it takes
Yeah.
to be the next big white Jewish rapper that
That's big
is
white Jay-Z.
the same type of batshit craziness that you need to think that you could actually start a
We need to
Seriously.
get Lil Dicky in here, and then you four start a rap group.
That'd be sick. He would never freestyle with me though, because he's like very, methodical and very, he was like, I'm only gonna spit if
A
I write it.
penman.
Not like as a shot to you, but
No, that was
It-
I think it was one of the things that held me back, but I never wanted to people would always be like, "Oh, freestyle or whatever." I didn't enjoy that. I didn't like, being the center of attention
Right.
and like entertaining people spontaneously, but what I did like was, sitting in my room and producing beats and
Right.
writing lyrics that I thought were clever and doing that for like hours on end and, making albums.
Well,
I remember
they-
I actually found Ross's raps once, and it felt like I was reading his diary. I was like, oh my God. Like, I feel like I shouldn't have stumbled upon this.
Really?
I stand by my lyrics. I think I had bars. I had no swag, but I had bars.
Well,
I
listen,
think,
Let's put it
I
like
think
that.
it's still up on YouTube, right?
Listen, Big JD, one of your bars, one of your lyrics from that song that I sniped a picture from was, "This music shit used to just be a hobby, and now it's feeling like they can't stop me." So if that isn't a young white Jewish rapper
Wow.
manifesting his future, I don't know what is.
I love
So,
that.
There you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you
congratulations,
again.
guys.
Thank you
Congratulations.
guys so much.
Wow, you
Where-
don't have anything to put Charles on the spot with?
sorry.
No, it's all you today.
Really
And
had one-
actually, I'm surprised because there's a lot of shit that you could probably
I had
find
a
if you
We
few.
put it on
have
the
a
spot.
I had a
whole
few.
bunch of them we can talk about later, but
But where can the listeners find you? What are the socials? What do you want them to know before we wrap up here?
You're not talking about my rap career, right?
No, Big JD, no. Sit.
Down.
Yeah, down, boy.
We belong here.world. That's the website. That's our social handles. That's everything where you can find us.
Okay.
So check out, the past sets from Central Park and all of the cool locations we've been over the past couple of years. Announcements are on Instagram. The website is where everything lives. So
Okay.
I mean, just like, yeah, just know that you belong here. The person sitting next to you belongs here. Your mom belongs here. Your dad belongs here.
both of our
Everyone.
parents will be at the festival.
Both of our parents will be belonging here. So definitely come
Bring
check
your
it out.
parents too.
Yeah. And join us. And Belle, where can they find us?
at b2b.pod,
Like,
subscribe, share it with
Share.
your friends, and come with us to the festival, and we'll all dance together.
yeah, I can't wait.
Do it.
Let's go.
Let's
Thanks,
go.
guys. Whiskey out.
Thank
Thank you guys.